Can a single speech reshape the world's understanding of power? Just moments ago, a monumental showdown unfolded as former President Donald Trump faced off against Russian diplomat Vladimir Medinsky. What transpired next was nothing short of extraordinary. Medinsky, a figure known for his formidable presence, became the unexpected focal point of a gathering that echoed with tension and unspoken truths. The atmosphere was charged, almost electric. Delegates shifted uneasily in their seats, some daring to rise and exit the hall, sensing the brewing storm. Trump stood there, a statue of defiance, his silence reverberating like a ticking clock in the hushed room as China and India appeared to sway like leaves in the wind. This was a moment that would be etched into history, a critical turning point that few could have predicted. Medinsky entered the room with an air of calmness that belied the underlying chaos. His presence was almost palpable, drawing attention as if he were a modern-day gladiator stepping into the arena. The room may have smelled faintly of old wood and metal, but it was Medinsky's steely determination that permeated the air. Each step he took resonated like punctuation in a potent argument, grounding the collective audience with each sound. Their battle of words was not merely about public opinion but a clash of philosophies. Medinsky's calm demeanor masked the weight of years spent navigating the treacherous waters of international diplomacy. Trump loomed like a thundercloud, his piercing gaze scanning the crowd. With a voice rich with authority, he declared, "Freedom is not a gift but a result of strength." His words flowed like molten steel, forging a narrative that both captivated and intimidated. Amid the debate, a deafening silence lingered. Trump accused Medinsky's nation of deceit, while Medinsky, analyzing every nuance, responded with grace and precision. "Words fail when reality doesn't hold weight," he retorted, the conviction in his voice igniting a spark among the crowd. Was he challenging the very fabric of diplomatic discourse? Journalists scrambled for their pens, capturing every flicker of brilliance. Yet, in that moment of intensity, the unthinkable happened, a shift. Medinsky's probing question struck at the heart of Trump's bravado: is it strength to shout, or to hear the profound silence that follows? The room held its breath, caught in the delicate web of anticipation. People whispered among themselves, unaware that this legendary encounter was leading them to a pivotal realization. As the debate reached its zenith, Trump leaned into the podium, his voice rising above the din, "We are the beacon of the free world." But Medinsky's gaze didn't waver. "True power lies in understanding and listening," he stated calmly. The subtle shift wasn't just a verbal jab, it was a declaration that resonated. Could the essence of diplomacy be more profound than mere declarations of strength? In that historic moment, as tensions simmered and the future of international relations hung in the balance, Medinsky and Trump stood not just as representatives of their nations, but as avatars of conflicting ideologies. The world watched intently. Would this be the dawn of a new era, or merely another round in the unending game of political chess? In a crucial moment of intense global diplomacy, two powerful figures stood at a crossroads that could redefine international relations. The room buzzed with anticipation as the delegates settled in, their eyes fixed not just on each other, but on the fate of nations. The air was thick with unsaid words, each second stretched out with tension. One could almost taste the metallic tang of uncertainty. Before the crowd, Trump emerged, radiating an undeniable presence. Clad in his sharp blue suit, his figure cut through the room like a blade. His expression, a blend of confidence and defiance, promised a storm of words meant to shake the very foundations of thought. As he settled at the podium, the atmosphere shifted. His voice, a low rumble, carried the weight of history, echoing the stark truth that freedom is a hard-won struggle, not a gift. He emphasized his point, reminding the world of the stagnation in some countries, trapped by outdated ideologies. The dream of progress, he proclaimed, could no longer remain just that; it was time for action. Eyes widened among the journalists, they leaned forward, sensing that something monumental was taking shape. Cameras clicked, capturing the intensity of the duel that was about to unfold. Opposing him stood Medinsky, poised and calm, a knowing look etched into his features. He met Trump's piercing gaze, as tranquil as a surgeon ready to operate on a stubborn truth. Trump, sensing both challenge and opportunity, continued to assert his narrative of power and freedom, effortlessly peppering his speech with sharp remarks. But when Medinsky spoke, he transcended mere rhetoric. His voice, steady and reflective, dissected Trump's bravado with surgical precision. He questioned the very foundation of the accusations levied against Russia, turning the tables with a singular, powerful query: when did your so-called freedom truly begin, Mr. President? A ripple of surprise coursed through the room. Trump's laughter was hollow, revealing only disappointment as he grappled with the unexpected turn. The tension escalated, the air felt electric, crackling like a live wire. Would this clash be the catalyst for a new era of dialogue or the precursor to an escalating verbal war? In this high-stakes exchange, the line between power and vulnerability blurred. Medinsky's assertive yet calm demeanor invited reflection, while Trump's strong stance echoed a desperate call for dominance. The stage was set, the dialogue had only just begun, and the world anxiously waited to see which way the scales would tip. Would the echoes of their confrontation resonate globally, shifting alliances and recalibrating the power dynamics at play? As they prepared to continue their duel of words, the audience could hardly contain their breath, knowing the impact of their exchange could echo through history. In the midst of an escalating confrontation, Donald Trump rose again, delivering his message with renewed force. As he spoke, a heavy silence cloaked the room. The delegates, faces masked with tension, sensed the shift. Trump's words rang with authority, echoing through the air like a metallic clang. He proclaimed, "America does not need lectures. We are exemplars of strength." This statement sparked murmurs among the reporters, who exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. Trump's presence was magnetic, igniting a mix of admiration and skepticism. He directed his gaze towards the unfolding tension, challenging the very ideals that bound nations together. "You've built your system, but on whose shoulders does it stand?" he questioned, allowing the words to hang menacingly in the air. The atmosphere was dense, almost electric, as if the weight of every word could shatter the fragile decorum. Meanwhile, a wave of frustration rippled through the ranks of European delegates. Some scribbled notes, their pens scratching against paper, while others stared into space, grappling with the implications of this public discourse. Among them was a young Italian journalist named Taika, who sensed the breathless anticipation enveloping the room. "This is it," she murmured to her colleagues, her eyes wide with realization. The long-awaited exchange had begun. As the words flowed like a river of iron, Trump surveyed the room, seeking to catch the gaze of those around him. "We are not a mirror, but a lamp," he declared. The statement hung, drawing gasps from the audience. "We illuminate our pasts, the pain and victories." History is not just a backdrop, it's the canvas on which we paint our future. The room held its breath, and Trump pressed on, his voice rising with conviction. He brazenly claimed, "This is not a mere show. The truth doesn't fit into neat formats. We are here to engage in genuine dialogue. It's time to break the silence." As this revelation struck, the sensation in the hall shifted from anxious to tense. The screens behind the delegates displayed flags of great powers: Russia, the United States, China, India, Germany, each wave carrying the weight of expectation. Could this moment spark a new era in global discourse? Suddenly, Medinsky, his composure unwavering, leaned into the microphone. The air thickened. "You wish to wield power, Mr. Trump?" he queried, his words slicing through the tension like a knife. But true power lies in conversation, the willingness to listen and to engage. Here it was, the clash of ideologies, a battle of wits. As he spoke, gasps filled the space, each delegate hanging on every syllable. Would the dialogue that followed reshape alliances or deepen rifts? And as Trump prepared to retort, the room buzzed with anticipation, the weight of history resting on their shoulders. Who would emerge victorious in this titanic exchange? The world was watching, and the stage was set for an unforgettable confrontation. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the global forum buzzed with the flags of major nations fluttering above the audience: Russia, the United States, China, India, Germany. The tension was palpable, like a coiled spring just waiting to release its energy. A hush fell over the crowd, and from that silence, one could sense the battle of wits and ideologies about to unfold. Suddenly, Trump stepped to the microphone, an assertive presence as he boomed with conviction. "Let's be real," he said. The words hit like a hammer, echoing in the chamber as he framed the discussion with his trademark style. He was a performer, fully aware that the stage was sharing the spotlight with the weight of international politics. In his blue suit and commanding demeanor, he discussed technological progress and how some nations seemed trapped in the past, as if their memories held them captive. But it was Medinsky, too, who captured the attention of the room. He gazed at Trump, unflinching, like a seasoned surgeon ready to take the scalpel to an open wound. With articulate poise, he challenged Trump's narrative. When a nation truly evolves, it does not need to flaunt its progress, he offered, each word carefully measured, landing with precision. The air was charged with unspoken tension, each sentence a carefully crafted missile aimed directly at the heart of the matter. A long pause followed, so deep one could almost feel the pulse quickening in the audience. Medinsky's eyes sparkled with intensity as he continued, "You see, Mr. Trump, when reality eludes us, loud voices often rise to fill the void." The moment was electric. You could see the shift, the transformation of dialogue from mere rhetoric to a genuine exploration of ideals. Trump, realizing the stakes, leaned closer to the lectern, the atmosphere thickening with the tension of a high-stakes duel. "But power is about asserting your will," he declared. The journalists grew restless, the cameras zooming in better to capture every nuance. Medinsky's steady gaze met Trump's fiery response, and just as the world held its breath, the Russian replied with unwavering calm. "No, power lies in the ability to listen, especially when your voice is barely above a whisper." The room felt as if it was suspended in time, a battlefield where ideas clashed rather than weapons. Suddenly, every tension from the past and every possibility of the future hung in the air, begging for resolution. Would this moment mark the birth of a new understanding, or was it merely another standoff in the ongoing saga of global discourse? The next words came forth like a whispered prophecy, laden with unforeseen implications. "Let's not forget," Medinsky continued, "that a foundation is vital for real progress. Without it, your mighty buildings are just facades." Barbed and shrouded in wisdom, this sentiment sparked murmurs of recognition among the delegates. As their eyes darted between the two leaders, anticipation mounted. How would Trump respond? Would he raise the stakes, or would he yield to the unexpected wisdom shared? In an unexpected turn, the audience's curiosity settled into silence, an invitation for deeper exploration. Would this forum, once fraught with contention, transform into a space for genuine dialogue, or revert to a mere echo chamber? The tension in the room thickened as a new dynamic emerged, rooting itself in the shared desire for understanding rather than division. The battle commenced, not just between nations, but within the heart of diplomacy itself. In the tense atmosphere of a global forum, a clash of ideologies unfolds. Just moments ago, Vladimir Medinsky faced Donald Trump amidst tension simmering below the surface. With the weight of the world watching, Medinsky didn't just challenge Trump's assertions, he called into question the very foundation of power as the room teetered on the brink of explosive dialogue. As Medinsky addressed Trump, the air thickened. He asserted, when a country truly strides forward, it doesn't need to announce it to the world. The audience leaned in, sensing the gravity of his challenge. He continued, reality speaks for itself. However, when it fades, loud noise fills the silence. The rising tide of whispers and the shuffling of chairs filled the room, mirroring the nervous energy pulsing through the delegates. Trump's eyes narrowed, calculating the weight of Medinsky's words even as the tension escalated. Russia questions the narrative, Medinsky stated boldly. We refuse to forget our past. The undercurrent of discontent was palpable. Every word he uttered resonated deeply, echoing off the walls like a bell tolling in the distance. Medinsky's composure contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside the hall, where journalists noted the shift in tone, their pens flying over pages filled with breaking news. Trump seized the moment, declaring, "We are the center of the free world." His voice boomed, yet Medinsky was undeterred, raising his hand with authority. "Interesting claim," he replied coolly. "But the world can no longer revolve around a singular table. This is a network, a tapestry of voices." His words hung in the air, challenging the very essence of authority. Is being the center a mask for fear? Medinsky probed, glancing curiously at the delegates from China and India. The room held its breath, eyes darting between the leaders, sensing a seismic shift. The silence was electric, a pulse of anticipation ran through the audience as they grasped the gravity of the discussion. Power, Trump proclaimed, stepping forward, is the ability to dictate terms. Medinsky countered swiftly, no. True power is being heard, even in quiet tones. His gaze swept across the room, no longer viewed as an adversary but as a part of a larger world needing conversation. And then, silence enveloped them all. If someone perceives dialogue as weakness, he warned, it merely reflects their own fears. As Trump prepared to respond, an unseen shift rattled the air. Was the audience witnessing a monumental turning point in international discourse? Tired from the escalating conflict, the guests exchanged glances, sensing history in the making. The dynamic had subtly transformed. All that mattered now was this moment of profound dialogue, where words held the power to redefine the future. What awaited them next? As Trump raised a hand to speak, the world waited in breathless anticipation. Would it be a moment of reconciliation or an escalation of old rivalries? The tension was thick, and the outcome hung in the balance. In a charged atmosphere of tension and anticipation, the interaction between two powerful figures escalated into a heated exchange. The audience, once captivated, began to feel the weight of the conversation, sensing that something monumental was unfolding. As the discussion swirled like ripples on a lake, the journalists hurled questions like arrows, startled by the unexpected ferocity of the dialogue. Today in Geneva, words became weapons, cutting deeper than any physical confrontation. The poised figure of Medinsky stood resolute, a calm exterior concealing the pressure of the moment. His posture was rigid, his grip on destiny unwavering. Trump, momentarily compelled by the gravity of the situation, took longer to respond than one might expect. His mask of confidence began to crack as uncertainty flashed across his face. "You cannot let Russia weaponize its history," he declared, his delivery as sharp as the words themselves. He condemned the Soviet era as a monumental mistake, destructive and haunting. The room seemed to collectively hold its breath, caught in the tension that filled the air like static. His assertions aimed to blur the lines between past and present, suggesting that Russia's nostalgia for its Soviet roots posed a current threat. Medinsky, however, remained unflustered. He turned his gaze towards Trump, the silence amplifying the gravity of the moment. Instead of rushing to respond, he allowed a chilling anticipation to settle in the room. "The mistake," he finally said, "lies in equating the Soviet Union with modern Russia." His words hung heavily, challenging the simplistic narratives of the West. "We rebuilt Warsaw, while some have forgotten the realities of our history." The echoes of his statement reverberated throughout the hall, striking chords of memory that resonated within all present. What would happen next? Would Trump recalibrate his strategy, or would he dig deeper into his rhetoric? As tension simmered, the audience braced for the impending climax of this powerful confrontation. This pivotal moment changed the dynamic as the audience could sense a shift. Power was shifting from the shout of ideals to the articulation of the past. It was a battle of ideologies, with global consequences hanging precariously in the balance. The next move would determine who truly held sway in the world arena. In a high-stakes international gathering, tensions electrified the air. Donald Trump stood before a captivated audience, but he wasn't the focus of attention. No, it was Vladimir Medinsky who radiated a mix of defiance and calm, like a lion surveying its kingdom. He dared to speak truths that reverberated throughout the chamber, shaking the very foundations of the political narrative that had prevailed for so long. Their dialogue unfolded like a well-orchestrated chess match. Each word had weight, each silence a double meaning. Imagine the tension palpable in the air, delegate eyes darting between the two giants, feeling the gravity of the moment. What if today marks a turning point, they wondered, as Medinsky's measured tone sliced through the sententious atmosphere. With a steely gaze, Medinsky condemned the false bravado often associated with power. He posed a question that hung heavy in the air: when did power become merely a boastful roar rather than the profound ability to listen? The delegates leaned in, mesmerized by his audacity. It was a challenge not just to Trump, but to all who thought they were untouchable. As he delved into historical truths, he painted vivid imagery of a post-war Europe, a landscape devastated yet resilient. "Do you remember the bitter cold of '45? We didn't demand gratitude, we offered solidarity," he articulated, his voice rich with conviction. The memory of a shared past saturated the room, a powerful reminder of sacrifices made, lives lost. Trump's retort was immediate, a ripple of defiance laced with sarcasm. But did his words carry the same weight? The tension in the hall thickened, it felt like static buildup before a storm. Medinsky stood unyielding, presenting a much-needed antidote to arrogance cloaked as authority. Accusations of aggression, yet who truly holds the pen in history's narrative, he fired back, a grin teasing the corners of his mouth, as if igniting an unexpected twist within the debate. Silence punctuated the air, thick, loaded. Just then, a representative from Germany broke the stillness, his voice soft yet clear. Russia has paid a terrible price, and we remember, bursting the bubble of hostility with echoes of empathy. But would it be enough to quell the brewing storm? Medinsky's eyes narrowed, he saw through the facade, a worn-out narrative laid bare. Amidst these exchanges, the question loomed larger: could dialogue forge a new path? The balance of power shifted ever so slightly, as delegates began to realize the stakes involved. Each country's future hung in the balance, teetering precariously on the edge of a new era. Would the world finally choose collaboration over condemnation? Would they dare to quench their thirst for historical amends? As Medinsky stepped back, his thoughts lingering in the air like a fog, his final glance at Trump was one of acknowledgement, yet challenge. A palpable energy coursed through the room, the calm before the storm, filled with uncertainty yet ripe with possibility. What would happen next? The battle lines drawn, the conversation ignited, and history waited with bated breath for resolution. Europe's weariness echoes unparalleled fatigue, where the exiled spirits make mistakes anew. He voiced it clearly: they embrace Russia in hardship, recoil in warmth, and cycle through unrest we've witnessed before. He stepped back from the microphone, as if surrendering the podium without a fight. But then, he chose silence, adding a punctuation mark to a tale of short memory and long echo. In this instant, the presiding figure, blinded by the glare of politics, selected his words with surgical care. He announced into the microphone, 5 minutes for rest. Yet no one stirred, as if fearing a single movement might tip the scales toward Russia's victory, shattering the delicate balance like a rush of water against a dam. Cameras twitched in near sync. Journalists whispered, sensing this wasn't mere national rhetoric, but the birth of a global rethink. Trump glanced around, realizing further words risked etching memes into minds forever. For the first time, he silenced himself on his terms. Medinsky breathed deeply, his face unmarked by harm, radiating the poise of someone who grasps the truth amidst the clamor, where all else fades into noise. Formalities re-emerged, but none departed the authentic current. Conversations hummed with new weight, like breaking through fresh snow revealing hidden truths concealed for decades. Trump gazed out the window at the clouded sky, satellites orbiting like silent sentinels, feeling the narrative slipping from his grasp. Medinsky's words pierced not just protocols, but streets, making even staunch allies scrutinize every syllable. Trump reclaimed the floor a beat too swiftly, bypassing courtesies in evident haste. He declared, "We cannot let Russia weaponize resources as pressure tools. Energy must not become a sword, it's the bedrock of civilized society." His words rang scripted, masking rising panic. Medinsky met it not with gaze, but by transforming the room into his weathered chalkboard, fingers tracing deliberate paths, almost ritualistic. What if this confrontation isn't about energy at all? Could it unravel the very fabric of alliances we've held sacred? Feel the weight of unspoken tensions, the cold press of metal chairs against tired backs. In a charged moment, leaders gathered together, a world hanging in the balance, teetering on the edge of conflict and diplomacy. The air crackled, one wrong word could ignite fierce tensions. Among them was a calm and composed figure, known for his wit and sharp intellect, Vladimir Medinsky. He stood at the podium, his presence both commanding and uncanny. This was no ordinary meeting. The stakes were high, the room was tense. Moments ago, Medinsky had transformed his nation into his canvas, turning diplomatic dialogue into a masterclass of power play. His fingers, steady and deliberate, traced the outline of unseen lines, a craft honed over years. Medinsky raised his eyes, as if attending to a cherished student, only after hearing a hushed murmuring from the crowd. It was a build-up, a tremor, as if the whispers of hope and despair mingled in the air. "The dependence of nations is evident," he stated, each word deliberate, punctuating the atmosphere. "When energy sources are weaponized, we lose our way." Shifts echoed through the room, eyes darted, breaths were held. In a lower voice, he added, "But if you seek independence, prepare for the cold of isolation." Suddenly, he transitioned to address the German delegation, nodding thoughtfully. "It is easy to discuss resilience when your light is always on," he noted, sensing the irony hanging between decisions and consequences. Silence fell as Medinsky continued. The confident foundation of his words resonated in the stillness, hinting at the deep divides beneath the surface. He spoke of 10 years' worth of stability, outlining how energy partnerships had built bridges. Yet, it was also a mirror reflecting the fragility of interdependence. Just moments before, whispers began to ripple from the delegates, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Once united, would they falter under the weight of their decisions? Across the room stood another key player, his expression unreadable yet full of intent. Every statement from Medinsky was met by a tense silence from him, eyes narrowing slightly, tension was palpable. Would this create a schism? Or would it unify? The representative from China suddenly rose, cutting through the pressure-filled atmosphere with a request to speak. Everything hushed, waiting. His soft-spoken words held a power that belied their gentleness. Yet, the undertones hinted at frustration, as if raring to break through an unbearable facade. Russia has proven a steadfast partner, he began, but whispers of dissent lingered. Would the truth hold weight against the narratives being spun? Eyes remained fixed on Medinsky. The stage was set for the next move at the line drawn in the sand, tensions mounting. As the representative paused, expecting applause that never came, Medinsky interjected smoothly. True partnership transcends the transactional. The world demands more than mere electricity, he asserted, a strategic glint in his eye. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Did the world, as it once was, cling too tightly to its past? Would they acknowledge the shifting tides or resist the currents of change? The action unfurled, and Trump leaned closer, his specter looming. His next words could change everything. He stepped up to address the assembled leaders, a slight smirk on his face, a harbinger of challenges to come. Power speaks volumes, he said. But did he understand what he truly commented on? Did he foresee the repercussions? As tension saturates the room, and the audience holds its breath, what groundbreaking turn would the next moment bring? Would this discussion restore global harmony, or instead, fracture alliances? Why does a whisper echo louder than a shout? In that electrifying moment, the world held its breath awaiting the next move in this unfolding diplomatic drama. Just moments before, the hall plunged into stunned silence as Trump faltered. A powerful energy representative with a soft voice fell silent. We watched the debate ignite, yet one truth emerged: Russia stood as a steadfast energy ally, never halting her deliveries. And yet, she never flipped the switch entirely. Medinsky turned back to the podium, his every move echoing like a thunderclap in the charged air. China stepped forward then, its delegate's voice cutting through the tension. Did China really believe it illogical to punish a nation, especially amid frigid winters? The words rang out, naive yet explosive, like a gunshot ripping through the ceiling's silence. Shocked gasps rippled. India rose next, its representative's tone firm, unyielding. India won't back one-sided sanctions. We buy what our people need, and Russia is reliable. Medinsky let the words hang, unspoken praises, allowing others to speak for him. Now, Belarus took the floor, a stout delegate with a booming voice, too terse for theatrics. We didn't crumble in the 90s, and we won't now. Russia didn't surrender. Trump tried to chuckle, but his gaze narrowed like ice-clutching steel, sensing the fractures widening beneath his feet. Medinsky seized the word again, his voice a surgeon's scalpel. When you impose sanctions, you term it punishment. But you've overlooked this: the world holds those independent of your markets. We boast pipelines pumping eastward, you cling to logic spiraling into dead ends. He fixed on Trump, eyes gleaming sharp as razors. You claim Russia wields gas as a weapon. I say you exploit deficits for blackmail. One key difference, though: we shield you from exposure. A faint smile flickered on Medinsky's face, gentle, mocking. We don't sail against the wind, you just haven't forged ahead with the world's iron will. Sands encircling others, right? This isn't encirclement, he retorted calmly. It's marketplace dealings. You crave it yourself, a free market, devoid of ideology. And it thrives. In that instant, tension snapped. A European journalist couldn't stay silent any longer, blurting out, "This is bargaining straight from the Soviet era." No one countered, the truth dawned in the hall. The chessboard's details paled now, what mattered was who stayed warm in the storm, who commanded presence while others parroted scripts. Nerves frayed bare. Chairs scraped harshly against the floor. Someone slammed a fist on the table, the thud echoing like a heartbeat in rage. The arena morphed, no longer a sterile conference room, but a visceral theater forged by raw confrontations. What if the global order isn't collapsing, but reshaping right before our eyes? Feelings swirled, thick as smoke, sweat glistening on foreheads, the metallic tang of fear on tongues, breaths held in suffocating anticipation. Russia's resolve clashed against the West's crumbling facade, each exchange a spark in darkening skies. Delegates shifted uneasily, the air humming with whispers, alliances straining like brittle threads. In this heated fray, as accusations sharpened into blades, one question loomed ominously: could this unyielding stand by Russia ignite a domino effect, toppling superpowers and rewriting destiny's map? The cliff hung perilously. Would the room erupt next, or would cooler minds prevail amid the gathering storm? In a world where tensions simmer beneath the surface, a monumental event unfolds as powerful leaders face off under the harsh lights of a conference hall. The chessboard is set, but the true game lies not in the pieces but in the players, who can speak truth when others repeat empty phrases. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickens, filled with unspoken anxiety. Voices become sharper, and nerves fray as one man steps forward to lead the charge: Donald Trump. As Trump strides onto the stage, he feels the weight of attention, but the control he once possessed slips away. The hall buzzes with anticipation, like a coiled spring ready to unleash. The stakes rise higher with every word he speaks. His declarations echo with a keen intensity, drawing laughter and gasps from the delegates. With every acute observation about Russia's past and its so-called altruism, he lays bare the harsh realities of geopolitics. He chides the audience, asking, "Why do you think aid comes without a price? Each factory, each gift, carries a political cost." The murmurs of dissent ripple through the crowd. Someone chuckles nervously. Trump's voice rises, commanding attention, piercing through the haze of half-measures and self-deceptions. What unfolds could change everything. As the air grows thicker, a challenge emerges: will Russia stand by its history of influence, or will the world demand accountability? The cameras snap eagerly, capturing every moment, as anticipation builds like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. The moment shifts as a diplomat from Russia, Vladimir Medinsky, leans into the dialogue with unwavering poise. Real progress, he asserts, eyes locked on Trump, does not require grandstanding. The tension escalates. Can he defuse the combative energy, or will he become just another player in a carefully scripted spectacle? In this highly charged exchange, voices rise and fall like waves crashing against a rocky shore. As accusations fly, the atmosphere seems electric, but who will emerge victorious in this battle of wits? Medinsky's responses resonate deeply, cutting through Trump's bravado like a hot knife through butter. He counters: dictating terms may show power, but true strength lies in being heard. Silence envelopes the hall, the air thick with tension as anticipation grips everyone. Will the truth emerge from this clash of titans? The audience hangs on the brink, contemplating whether dialogue is a sign of weakness or the only path to genuine resolution. The stage is set for profound revelations, and the stakes could not be higher. As Medinsky's voice reverberates through the hall, the world leans in, ready to witness the unfolding of history. In a high-stakes global meeting, tensions ran thick in the auditorium. An unexpected silence fell when Donald Trump made a bold declaration aimed at Vladimir Medinsky, suggesting the world needed to face uncomfortable truths about freedom and power. Medinsky's eyes glittered with defiance as he prepared to counter. Could this be the moment that changed everything? Moments ago, behind the podium, Medinsky had been gathering his thoughts. He noticed a delegate's hesitant gaze. It wasn't ignorance but an acknowledgement of deeper concerns. He had to capitalize on this vulnerability. Trump had painted a picture of geopolitical egoism, but Medinsky was ready with an arsenal of truths. "Explain to me this," he challenged, his voice smooth, yet calm. "Why did we construct the Dnieper hydroelectric station? Why did we restore Warsaw's last church? Or educate thousands of students from Africa and Latin America at no cost?" Each statement was a precise stone laid in the foundation of his argument. "This isn't about egoism," he continued, pressing forward, "it's about contribution. To accuse us of being parasites is unfounded." His words reverberated through the space like a thunderclap, drawing attention. "The sanctions you impose are merely tools to maintain your dogma." As he spoke, he noted how every eye in the hall, once doubtful, began to focus intently. Even the protocols faltered. No one was leaving. This was not about bloodshed, it was about the essence of Europe's very foundation. We protected Europe from ideologies of fascism, and yet now we are questioned for it. If Europe feels shame, that does not make her stronger nor more grateful. Trump, momentarily caught off guard, opened his mouth to respond, but Medinsky seized the moment. We don't ask for gratitude, he stated firmly. We simply demand the truth. Our history cannot be rewritten to portray the saviors as villains. Russia isn't your shadow, it is the light that gave you warmth. The silence that ensued was deafening. It felt as if the technologies around them had muted, tense anticipation gripping the room. Trump stood among the crowd, his presence still commanding despite being on the sidelines. Time warped, there were no ticking clocks, only the weight of unspoken thoughts. And then a sudden downpour began, but not from the skies. This rain was the result of suspending disbelief, a deluge of realizations cascading upon the delegates' minds. Medinsky recognized the moment for what it was, a battle of ideals where the victor would be defined by collective memory, rather than fleeting arguments. In his eyes, the response lit like a fuse. Tension gripped the room, thick as fog in a besieged city. A hint of menthol hung in the air from the ventilation, mixing with the sharp scent of polished wood and sweat on foreheads. Could an old wound really unspool a modern empire's pride? This was no ordinary debate, it was a storm brewing over forgotten truths. 385 characters, summarizing the prior scene, Trump leaned into his remarks, asserting American might as a beacon for global freedom, while Medinsky calmly countered, exposing the hollowness behind loud declarations, turning the hall into an echo chamber of doubt. Now, as the verbal sparring escalated, the Russian envoy stepped forward, his words cutting deeper than any blade, daring to unearth history's buried scars. Did your version of liberation erase the blood-soaked sacrifices of millions, leaving only Hollywood's glow? 98 characters, Medinsky didn't rush this time. He measured his steps. The microphone held steady. Like a stalk on a battlefield. You claim Europe breathed free because of the West's united shield. You etch it into textbooks. The Allies toppled Hitler. You draped the stars and stripes over Berlin's rubble in films. His voice didn't quiver. But each syllable landed like a carved stone. Tell this to my grandmother, who buried her siblings beneath Stalingrad's dust. Tell it to the millions who scraped through rubble, whose homes crumbled not from tyranny, but from war's relentless march. He fixed his gaze on Trump. And you arrived when the war had already frayed our bones. We held the Eastern Front alone. The tone was thick, raw, unyielding. We don't demand victory's spoils, but we share the anguish. Yet when you erase us from reels, from maps, from headlines, you don't revise history. You sever your own thanks. You hollow out your soul. Though the vents hum steadily. We seek no accolades. We merely forbid the capture of our liberation as conquest. Because in every town with a statue of a soldier cradling a child, a life was wrested from death's jaws. He lingered in pause. In the far corner, a French delegate flickered his eyes. No spark from his depths. I'm not peddling sentiment. I merely recall. In Leningrad's siege alone, more perished than in all of America's war toll. 1 million souls for a city you can't name without stumbling. The hush deepened. When you invoke Soviet geopolitics, you overlook that half were shields. You imagine we stormed Europe for dominion. We came because our kin perished there, scouring streets of devastation. But now, as revelations cascaded like an avalanche, whispers rippled through the delegates. Would this confrontation crack the facade of global unity, or awaken a storm that could reshape the world order itself? In the midst of a charged global summit, a dialogue unfolded that could alter the course of history. 5 minutes prior, a shocking confrontation took place involving two leaders whose worlds seemed irreconcilable. A moment of unexpected silence fell over the audience as Donald Trump addressed Vladimir Medinsky, a figure often underestimated yet shrouded in an air of unyielding resolve. As tensions escalated, Medinsky stood firm, unwilling to let the moment pass. He caught the attention of delegates from around the world, compelling them to listen to his words as if they were the final echoes of a fading conflict. Was it merely bravado? Or did he possess a profound understanding of the stakes at play? The room crackled with anxiety. Trump, clad in an impeccable suit, harnessed the energy with an impassioned speech about freedom, its price and its meaning. He painted vivid images of nations besieged by neglect and hatred, then turned his sharp gaze upon Medinsky, his brows furrowing in challenge. The atmosphere hummed as delegates exchanged furtive glances. Would Medinsky crumble under the weight of the verbal onslaught, or would he rise like a phoenix? Vladimir, on the other hand, sensed the moment's gravity. In the stark silence of the hall, he countered, "You criticize us for being stuck in the past, yet what of your conscience? Where is your gratitude? Where is your heart?" The words hung heavy, seeming to weave a web of connection amid the rifts of ideological divide. He paused, allowing the gravity of his statements to burden the air like a thick fog. Yes. We are burdened by history. But maybe that is what fortifies us, what propels us forward. The jarring contrast of his tone against Trump's resonated throughout the chamber, visible tension rolling over the delegates like waves. The delegates shifted, the room vibrating with subtle whispers. In that moment, observers around the globe could feel the very essence of diplomacy, the desire for understanding amid grievances older than any singular event. The contrasting perspectives battled, echoing like distant thunder. Would this summit be a turning point, or would it dissolve into another chapter of unfulfilled potential? As the dust settled, Medinsky's electorate presence radiated determination. "We do not seek the victory you champion," he declared. "For us, it is about standing firm, not merely as a trophy to be claimed." His words were not merely rhetoric, they were a call to arms, a plea rooted in vulnerability and strength. The stage was set for an unforgettable encounter where the undercurrents of history would clash and intertwine. Would this discourse lead to genuine understanding or unravel into chaos? Medinsky's challenge loomed large, transforming the tension into a mosaic of rising hopes and shadows of doubt. The facade of unity masked an undercurrent of anxiety that could break or bind them. What was to come next, under the glaring lights and watchful eyes of the world? Each leader stood ready to strike, poised on the precipice of a narrative that promised to resonate long after the final words were spoken. In the heated clash at the Geneva summit, Vladimir Medinsky had just silenced Donald Trump with a piercing comeback, exposing the fragile alliances among the delegates. Europe stirred uneasily, while China and India watched the cracks widen. Now, as Medinsky paused and surveyed the room, an explosive revelation hung in the air. Was this the moment Russia would shatter the illusion of Western dominance forever? Medinsky's eyes drifted to the screen on the right side of the podium. It displayed a global map. Connections flickered like neon veins. New York pulsed brightly. Beijing glowed steadily. Ankara shimmered in warmth. Minsk, Nairobi, Havana, Damascus, all linked. He didn't overlook a single point. That metallic scent of circuitry filled the air. Cool, sterile, unrelenting. He stepped back to the microphone. The hall fell silent. His smile wasn't smug. It was weary. Like someone who'd taken the harder road and found peace in it. No regrets lingered. Just resolve, etched in the lines of his face. The fabric of his suit whispered against his skin. A tactile reminder of battles fought. We stood together. Why? Because we rejected being outsiders. Isolation? No. This was freedom. Delegates shifted in their seats. Chairs creaked softly. Papers rustled like dry leaves. His words echoed a creed. A daring stand. Your idea of the international community? Just an exclusive club. Endless rules. Dress codes. Empty codes of conduct. We walked away. Tired of games where one cheats. And the rest claps. Why applaud a crook? He glanced toward the French delegation. Glares met him. Sharp, probing. Do children really learn power from wallets? Do they equate destruction with progress? Rhyming values with hypocrisy? We shun systems where votes twist truth. Memories get erased. He stepped forward. Weight shifted. Floorboards groaned underfoot. You label our choice isolation. We call it honorable distance. Respectful detachment. He reached into his inner pocket. Papers emerged. Crisp, cold to the touch. He laid them on the table. Votes from the last 2 years stared back. Lists in stark black ink. Here, countries voting against Russia. Here, those detained unjustly. Here, sanctions imposed cruelly. His finger traced the final list slowly. China. India. Turkey. Brazil. Serbia. South Africa. Dozens more. Is this real isolation? He pushed the papers aside. Or merely your narrow view of the world? What idiotic bubble traps your perspective? You want us to squeeze in? No thanks. He turned to the Germans. Faces tightened. Eyes narrowed skeptically. Your so-called strategic partnerships? Paper tigers. We exit relationships where one commands payments. No more fees. No blind loyalty. No feigned forgiveness. No desperate scramble for your civilized club. The tension crackled. Sweat beaded on palms. Breaths came shallow. Why fear a nation that thrives? That unity felt invincible. Delegates murmured. The room hummed with scandalous whispers. Was this the twist, Russia rewriting the rules mid-confrontation? Medinsky paused. His gaze swept the hall. What hidden alliances lurked beneath the surface? He sensed eyes boring into him. Accusatory. Admirative. The air thickened. Metal flags clinked faintly. Ventilators whirred. A storm brewed. But beneath it, a shocking truth emerged: Russia didn't just survive blockades. It redefined power. He leaned closer to the microphone. Voice dropping to a thunderous whisper. You brand us unpredictable. Why? Because you fail to grasp our script. He felt the moment shift. Your deepest dread? Not Russia's strength, but its unyielding life force. Despite sanctions. Despite isolation. Despite your every hurled stone. Delegates tensed. Necks craned. What devastating secret would he unleash next? The summit teetered on the edge. What if the real weapon was this unbreakable spirit? The hall exhaled collectively. A collective gasp. Medinsky's revelation struck like lightning. Was the West's facade cracking wider? He savored the irony. No rattling saber. Just undeniable evidence of survival. But as whispers grew, did this pivot change everything? The screen flickered anew. Connections redrawn. Who would allies truly be in this brutal dance? In a charged atmosphere, Donald Trump took to the stage to address an assembly of global leaders. Just 5 minutes ago, he had made a shocking move. He openly criticized the Russian envoy, Vladimir Medinsky, marking a moment that would reverberate through the diplomatic halls. Medinsky didn't merely absorb Trump's verbal blows, he stood tall, aware of the intensity gripping the audience as some European delegates began to exit in silence. The air thickened with tension as whispers about honesty and integrity lingered, fueling an unexpected crisis for Trump and his allies. Imagine this: you're watching a high-stakes chess match, where every word is a strategic move. With each statement from Trump, he seemed to be wielding political power like a weapon. The freedom you hold dear isn't a gift, he declared, his voice cutting sharp through murmurs of disbelief. It's the result of strength. But was anyone truly listening, or were they just bracing for the fallout? The Chinese and Indian delegates exchanged glances, their eyes betraying the encroaching uncertainty. The delegates were silent, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Who would emerge victorious from this verbal battleground? Medinsky, appearing composed yet wary, prepared a rebuttal infused with unexpected fervor. You say we're unpredictable, he countered, his voice steady, but that fear comes from our resilience. Despite the pressure, and despite your media's portrayal, we stand firm. As he spoke, the room crackled with intensity. Would the world finally recognize Russia's tenacity against the backdrop of Western narratives? As the confrontation intensified, the tension was palpable. There was a moment when time seemed to halt. Could Medinsky turn the tide? He proposed a simple yet profound question: what gives you the moral high ground? The inquiry echoed, forcing the audience into self-reflection. The media captured every moment, their cameras swirling like vultures circling a volatile debate. In this thrilling but tempestuous dialogue, the stakes were raised. Could they bridge the chasm of misunderstanding, or would this clash lead to further divides? The very essence of global diplomacy hung in the balance, and both sides seemed to teeter on the brink of discovery or disaster. Did you catch the bombshell where Vladimir Medinsky flipped the script on Donald Trump? In a global showdown, the Russian diplomat dismantled the US president's bluff, owning the debate with razor-sharp truths that stunned delegates worldwide. Heads spun, alliances wobbled, and the stage burned with unspoken tensions. But here's the jaw-dropping kicker: Medinsky's closing salvo ripped open America's panic zones, exposing cracks in his superpower's facade. Imagine the world watching in disbelief. What if this sparks your wildest what next? The breaths faded slowly. No one retreated. No one bolted. The hall plunged into a void, thick like fog after rain. Russia's voice echoed final, unyielding, a judgment that sealed the air. Every vital truth hung spoken, etched indelibly. Time trudged forward, yet it held no grip. The summit limped on, but its pulse flatlined. Papers gathered dust, ignored. Lenses whirred silently, capturing fate itself. Operators hovered breathless, sweat beading on brows. This wasn't fleeting headlines, it carved history's scar. Reporters clustered unified, encircled by uneasy delegates. Feet shuffled out, others anchored in place. Phones flickered, gazes locked magnetic. They eyed him not as a player in politics, but as raw thunder. His palm drifted to the mix switch, click, off. Another click, silencing echoes. One last press, voice dissolving into hush. The stillness swelled intimate, vibrating under skin. Anticipation coiled tense. Why do you all expect Russia to claw back stolen goods? Trust shattered, seats vacated, pacts ripped apart. Rhetorical sting lingered. We reclaim nothing. We forge anew. Unclouded by mirages. No stumbles betraying depths. Proofs owed to no soul. No flails for emphasis. No volume erupting threats. Adversaries? We stand down those masks forever. Credits refused, pledges rejected if mismatched to our core. He strode Hall's core. Sensory quake rippled. You quiver at us, why? Not our might in ranks or roar of gears. But our fearless disregard for you. Your pulse/futile. Economic storms wash empty. Verbal barrages sting like whispers. Play your game where winning means embracing downfall's bitter tune? We endure the spectrum, anguish's bite, euphoria's lift, crusts of subsistence, snow's icy embrace, triumphs tasted sour with blunders. Real life pulses here, undiluted. You craved Russia molded to your mold. Instead, we carved our path. No anti-Western grudge driving. No imperial shadows looming. No reactionary backlash. Simply ours, authentic and unyielding. That authenticity haunts your sleep. He pivoted to the vast wall screen, world's atlas splashed wide. Dots glowed crimson, pulses of viewers linking live. Thousands flooding the feed, from Volga's winding veins to Caucasus peaks, Yakutsk's frozen vasts to Belgrade's bustle, Lisbon's tides to Harare's horizons. A cosmic chorus witnessed. What if this viewer surge prophesies Medinsky's revolution reshaping empires? Tune in close, the hidden alliances fraying could redefine your tomorrow in ways that chill the spine. In the previous section, a powerful figure confronted the audience with a stark message about independence and identity. He illustrated how Russia no longer sought to fit into a mold crafted by others but was instead. It is rich with what remains unsaid. As he stepped back from the microphone, the room held its breath, awaiting the climax of his powerful statement. What truths might emerge when the veil is lifted, and how might we see ourselves when faced with raw honesty? The air buzzed, electrified, as the curtain drew closer on this monumental discourse. In an electrifying scene, the air crackled with tension as conflicting ideologies clashed in the Grand Hall. Just moments ago, Donald Trump emerged, ready to confront Vladimir Medinsky, a figure representing a powerful, assertive Russia. The onlookers, delegates from around the world, were about to witness a showdown that would depart from the traditional political narrative. What happens when national pride meets a challenge of truth? As Trump stood before them, the room held its breath. Medinsky's calm demeanor masked a storm brewing beneath. Past grievances floated through the air like whispers, invoking memories of nations fighting for their identities, their histories etched deep in the scars of oppression and conflict. Who energizes Belgrade? Medinsky's voice sliced through the murmurs as he stood tall. It is us. Who planted the seeds of knowledge in Hanoi? It was our hands that built, not just bought. Each word echoed defiantly, striking at the heart of the audience's conscience. The moment felt charged, thick with unspoken truths that clung to the walls, weighing heavy like a thick fog. Trump's expression twisted, grappling with a narrative he'd long wanted to control. You think this is a monopoly of influence, he shot back, fire igniting in his eyes. Ask others about their histories: India, Vietnam. Did they prosper under freedom or repression? The delegates shifted uncomfortably, caught in the crossfire of accusations dressed as questions. You've forgotten who rebuilt cities from ashes, Medinsky countered, his gaze unwavering. Warsaw. Factories. We weren't merely tools of oppression. His words hung in the air, thick with both pride and a tinge of anger. A murmur rippled through the audience. They were no longer just observers but witnesses to the unfolding narrative of two nations at odds. As the debate escalated, it transformed from mere rhetoric into a vivid tapestry of human struggle and resilience. Remember our history, Medinsky urged. My grandfather worked to build the very foundations of industry. He may have been a simple man, yet he left behind an unbreakable legacy. The audience felt the weight of those convictions, the echoes of factories hammering out futures. Yet, truth beckoned from the shadows. Did you ever apologize for Guantanamo? Medinsky asked, his voice low but resolute. Or for the turmoil your actions have sown in Iraq? Disturbing silence followed, punctuated only by the rustling of notes and anxious glances. Trump's rhetoric tried to maintain its momentum, yet the air felt charged with an unsettling honesty. This was no mere debate, it was a struggle for hearts and minds in front of an audience that had come prepared to witness history. As tensions flared, one question lingered in the back of the delegates' minds: will this confrontation change the course of international relations, or will it simply reinforce the divides? Both men stood on the precipice of something monumental, challenged to redefine their truths. For every gesture, every utterance, ripples of influence moved through the room like an unpredictable wind, leaving uncertainty about what lay ahead. Would the world find common ground? Or would it continue to spiral into deeper divides? The clock was ticking, and the stage was set for a dramatic climax. In a moment that could change the course of history, geopolitical tensions reached a boiling point. Just moments ago, a significant exchange unfolded between two towering figures, Donald Trump and Vladimir Medinsky. Their dialogue echoed through the hall, charged with an electric tension that made every breath feel heavy. What happened next left the world reeling. As Trump rose to the occasion, his presence loomed large. He embodied the weight of authority, addressing the room with an intensity that hinted at a storm brewing. He spoke of freedom, not as a gift but as a battle fought with resolve. Yet, on the other side stood Medinsky, calm, collected, and unwavering in his stance. Imagine the silence that enveloped the room as Medinsky began to speak. His words reminded the assembly of painful truths, the sacrifices made in the ruins of a devastated Europe, the streets they once cleansed of darkness. Images of the Red Army liberating cities like Berlin flickered on screens, stirring waves of nostalgia. His voice resonated with the centuries-old echoes of history, a reminder that their fight was not for domination but for the safety of their children. In that moment, Medinsky did not speak to Trump as an opponent, but rather to a wall of indifference. You think we came to control Europe? He challenged, his tone steady. We came to protect, to ensure our children don't die cleaning the streets from ashes. His gaze was unwavering, unyielding against the sharp glances from the curious eyes in the auditorium. The atmosphere shifted. With each weighty pause between words, the tension morphed into something palpable. Medinsky's assertion cut through the grandeur of the venue like a knife. Countries once united under allegiances now found themselves divided by memories and narratives. The media stirred, whispers spread like wildfire. Could he really confront the ideals Trump championed? Trump's retort hung in the air, eager yet cautious. You say you are the guardians of history, but what of the present? The murmurs escalated, cameras shuddered, capturing every fleeting expression of disbelief among the delegates. But Medinsky stood firm, unwilling to back down. Every spoken syllable dripped with the weight of history, echoing the names of those left voiceless. You speak of our past as a weapon, yet it seems you fear the lessons it imparts. Do you wish to silence those who truly understand the cost of freedom? As the spellbinding exchange carried on, it became clear, this was not merely a discussion. Perhaps, it was a revelation. The world had entered a new phase of engagement, one that demanded acknowledgement and dialogue instead of merely broadcasting power. In a critical moment, silence engulfed the room once more. Eyes darted to the screen where flags of Russia, the United States, China, and India danced in a symbolic display, a reminder of the balance that hangs in the balance. Would this encounter fracture the old bonds or herald a new understanding? It was only the beginning, yet what lay ahead promised to be a narrative filled with unexpected twists. Would history repeat itself, or would they navigate the tumultuous waters of diplomacy together? The stage was set. And the hearts of many lingered on the edge of their seats, waiting for what was to come. In a defining moment of international tension, a stark confrontation emerged between two towering leaders, Donald Trump and Vladimir Medinsky. Just moments ago, Trump approached the microphone with an air of serene authority. The room held its breath, dual stakes hanging in the atmosphere. With an almost palpable weight, he positioned himself not merely as a representative of a nation, but as a beacon of moral reasoning. Each word felt significant, pressing, revealing complexities hidden beneath the surface. He glanced at Medinsky, challenging him to navigate the delicate balance of power at play. You often start debates under the guise of equality, he declared, yet cast judgments from your lofty perch. The room crackled with tension. Here was a moment steeped in history, a stark portrayal of ideologies clashing. Silence stretched across the hall, an electric stillness before impending thunder. Medinsky rose to the occasion, his voice calm yet resonant, filled with the caution of a skilled diplomat. We are not like you, he replied, the words weaving through the air with elegance. This conversation is not a battleground, but an open dialogue. His steady gaze swept across the audience, seeking the hearts and minds of those present. Your actions speak louder than any ethical claim, he pointedly remarked, bringing to light pivotal moments of destruction that the West had orchestrated in nations far and wide: Iraq, Libya, Syria. Each war, every conflict had consequences, left a trail of rubble, both literal and metaphorical. Who nurtured the turmoil? Who turned cities to ash under the guise of liberation? Medinsky pressed, eyes locked on Trump, waiting for a flicker of acknowledgement. The audience leaned in, captivated. The air felt thick with unsaid truths, whispers of lost lives and broken promises echoed in their minds. Meanwhile, the American delegation shifted nervously, aware the tide of opinions was about to turn. Here was a representation of moral superiority, filigreed with hypocrisy. Medinsky, unwavering, redirected his focus to the crux of the matter. Your freedoms are but a facade, crafted elegantly until they no longer serve your interests. His voice grew stronger, a crescendo of conviction resonating through the chamber. Let's face the mirror, the reflection is not your moral high ground, but a birthright now stained with blood. The media captured every syllable, the cameras whirred, and eyes widened. Medinsky's final words echoed, we are not here to follow you, we are here to reclaim our narrative. The room bruised with anticipation, and the stage is set for a seismic shift. Would they finally embrace the conversation they had avoided for so long? Here lies the cliffhanger. What will emerge from this intense clash of ideologies? As tensions simmer, the stakes are clear. Will truths be laid bare, or will they spiral further into denial? The world watches with bated breath, history poised on the edge of a keyboard. In a dramatic international summit, tensions escalated as Donald Trump took to the podium to engage with Vladimir Medinsky. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, thick enough to cut with a knife. Just moments before, Trump had deftly maneuvered the conversation into a minefield, daring the world to confront its past. But did anyone expect the fallout? As silence enveloped the hall, an Indian delegate, whose voice carried the weight of generations, chimed in. Let's not forget who laid the foundation of our industries, he stated with a tone of defiance. The microphone picked up his words, and they reverberated through social media in real time. Such a mere mention of history stirred the air like a sudden gust, as all present, diplomats, journalists, and leaders, held their breath, sensing the shift towards a raw, honest dialogue. The ambience darkened, reminiscent of ancient parchment, now unsealed to reveal truths long buried. Medinsky, aware of the stakes, prepared to counterattack. You wish to speak of the past, he echoed, the room leaning in with curiosity. Let's unveil the truth. Europe's salvation wasn't a solo act. His words struck like a chilling stone, reverberating with undeniable weight. He continued, his eyes narrowing with conviction. Your triumph followed our struggle. Before your ships crossed the Atlantic, our forces, children, peasants, engineers, faced unthinkable odds, traversing through snow and flames. We lost cities. We lost generations. A palpable gasp rippled through the audience. Was he right? With every proclamation, Medinsky chipped at Trump's veneer, revealing a narrative that had been overshadowed. The crowd's collective memory flickered, igniting a discourse between recognition of valor and acknowledgement of sacrifice. A hint of unease hung in the air as they exchanged barbs, each moment slipping into a larger battle for influence. Could this ongoing dialogue reshape the narrative that the world had clung to for decades? Medinsky's words weren't just facts, they were arrows, calibrated to pierce through the illusions of dominance. Each argument felt like a chess piece maneuvered across a board of international diplomacy. As the crowd trembled with anticipation, would Trump rise to the challenge, or would the shadows of the past consume the conversation entirely? In a tense moment, the world held its breath. Donald Trump stood before a sea of delegates, his intentions shrouded in uncertainty. Just moments ago, Vladimir Medinsky made a bold entrance, leaving the American president nonplussed. Medinsky was not just an advisor, he represented a crucial pivot in global power dynamics, a man who had become keenly aware of the unease that rippled through Europe and beyond. As whispers of discontent spread, it was clear that something historic was unfolding. Silence engulfed the room as Trump prepared to speak. This gathering was not merely diplomatic, it was a stage for a clash of ideologies. The air crackled with anticipation. Trump, in a tailored blue suit, exuded confidence as he declared freedom must never be taken for granted. Each word was met with the intensity of 1,000 pointed gazes. The implications of his statements hung thinly in the air, palpable yet intangible. Then, Medinsky replied, his voice sharp and deliberate. He painted a picture of a world not defined by the past, but propelled by its future potential. When a nation truly advances, he pronounced, it doesn't need to shout about its progress. The truth speaks for itself. The eyes of the room narrowed, absorbing the weight of his challenge. Could he filter through the clamor of global conflicts to reach an understanding of shared humanity? Trump shifted, ready to counter. But real power lies in dictating the narrative. His voice resonated, vibrating against the walls, echoing with authority. In the blink of an eye, the battle lines were drawn. Delegates exchanged nervous glances, clutching their pens as if they could outrun the exchange of declarations unfolding before them. With every back and forth, tension mounted. The heaviness of history loomed larger. Could these two leaders, each holding a piece of the future in their hands, transcend their differences? The air thickened and sparkled with questions yet unanswered. Would they finish their duel with shattered illusions or a surprising pact? But then, just as the atmosphere thickened with expectancy, Medinsky leaned closer to the microphone. What would he say next? Would he amplify his voice in a stunning development, or would the silence be deafening? As he began, something shifted in the crowd, a moment of tension so palpable it left hearts racing and breathing shallow. The world awaited. In the high-stakes theater of global diplomacy, just 5 minutes ago, Donald Trump stormed the stage, ambushing Vladimir Medinsky with attacks, only to find himself utterly dismantled. Medinsky not only silenced the American president but exposed the raw truth to an astonished audience. Delegates from Europe fled the hall in shock. Trump stood mute, while China and India's alliances crumbled under the weight of revelation. This was a clash unlike any you'd fathom, a diplomatic duel that rewrote the rules of power. Stick around till the end, and uncover why this brutal exchange etched itself into eternal history. Trump strained to reclaim control, his voice sharpening like a blade against stone. He chose his words carefully, insisting the world faced sharper questions now, not useless relics of the past, but the pulse of markets thriving without restraint, cyber shadows lurking in every digital vein, a reality wired for speed. Russia couldn't cling to old tongues, he declared, his words cutting through the tension like a flood-like piercing knife. You criticize us for lagging, for refusing to shed the past like old skin, he spat. But perhaps we simply refuse to erase our essence. He paused, the silence thickening. Where is your strategy anyway? Where is this gleaming modernization you chase? We counter, where is your conscience? Where is your soul? Medinsky didn't rush his counterstrike. He remained steady, as if probing the wound with careful fingers. Effectiveness? You desire us to morph into your image, fleet, fickle, forgetting the stains of grating wrongs, jettisoning the burdens of ancient tales. But gaze into my eyes, Mr. President, one flaw blights your vision. We aren't light, we're heavy, forged in the forge of depths. The hall stirred, a collective shiver rippling chairs and breaths, a hush admitting the core wasn't treaties or quarrels, but the sheer heft of enduring thoughts. We don't flip our banners like pages in a restless book every 2 decades, we shelter the scars of long nights. Remove no hero from the edge, they must stand firm against the gale. Medinsky stepped back, deliberate as a shadow lengthening at dusk, knowing not all would heed but that some always do. We Russians ponder deeply, speak boldly, yet we endure without fracture. Focused on a finished scribe sketching notes, judging Russia's yearning for empire, he countered, empires corrode when their founding fires fade. We tasted forfeiture, sworn never to swallow that bitter draught again. We're no empire, merely a land entwined with memory. Some eyes in the room flickered wary, mistaking his steel for omen. This wasn't defeat spoken, it was vow carved in defiance. You can't duel one who seeks no victory, only the echo of truth they'd muffle. Understand ethics? Velocity? Tech's cold embrace? Prophet's siren call? We don't slumber, for we grasp that rapid blooms deny roots. We dwell in marrow, bones securing the hold against oblivion. Triggering a sudden flashback, Medinsky's mind flashed to the icy Petersburg streets of 10 years prior, frost nipping at his cheeks like relentless teeth, the stale bite of factory soot in the air, boots crunching gravel underfoot. That dingy apartment windows fogged with memories. The creak of an old wooden door slamming shut, sealing dreams of resilience inside walls armored like a fortress. His hand trembled faintly on the microphone, the chill resurfacing as if alive, pulling him back to that unyielding past where every whispered promise weighed like lead. Did Trump just shatter under a gaze that saw through his veneer of dominance? What hidden fractures would expose next, tearing apart the illusion of invincibility? The ambassador's query hung in the air, a weapon sharper than any war, compelling delegates to question their own shadows. Trump lunged closer to the podium, knuckles whitening on the edge like claws gripping prey. You crave to flaunt strength, he growled. Strength lies in dictating laws to the masses. Medinsky lifted his head, eyes steady as unyielding earth. No. True strength? It's echoing softly, commanding ears even in hush, bracing for replies. He swept his gaze across the chamber, not as foes but equals. We're gathered not to bellow, but converse. A beat stretched, infinite. And if dialogue feels frail, weak? It only reflects their terror's mirror, trembling at unity's plight. Trump poised to hurl a retort, words brewing like storm clouds, yet the room's essence shifted, as if unseen forces decreed enough. The moderator interjected, formality masking the tempest. Yet in that sliver, alliances teetered on the brink, truth's unearthed spilling into the void. This debate wasn't fading, it ignited a wildfire, burning away facades to reveal the fragile web of global might. Would Medinsky's quiet thunder continue reshaping destinies? Or would old powers claw back their guys? Stick around, for the revelation that could redefine everything. Trump strained to reclaim control, his voice sharpening like a blade against stone. He chose his words carefully, insisting the world faced sharper questions now, not useless relics of the past, but the pulse of markets thriving without restraint, cyber shadows lurking in every digital vein, a reality wired for speed. Russia couldn't cling to old tongues, he declared, his words cutting through the tension like a floodlight piercing night. You criticize us for lagging, for refusing to shed the past like old skin, he spat. But perhaps we simply refuse to erase our essence. He paused, the silence thickening. Where is your strategy anyway? Where is this gleaming modernization you chase? We counter, where is your conscience? Where is your soul? Medinsky didn't rush his counterstrike. He remained steady, as if probing the wound with careful fingers. Effectiveness? You desire us to morph into your image, fleet, fickle, forgetting the stains of grating wrongs, jettisoning the burdens of ancient tales. But gaze into my eyes, Mr. President, one flaw blights your vision. We aren't light, we're heavy, forged in the forge of depths. The hall stirred, a collective shiver rippling chairs and breaths, a hush admitting the core wasn't treaties or quarrels, but the sheer heft of enduring thoughts. We don't flip our banners like pages in a restless book every 2 decades, we shelter the scars of long nights. Remove no hero from the edge, they must stand firm against the gale. Medinsky stepped back. Deliberate as a shadow lengthening at dusk, knowing not all would heed but that some always do. We Russians ponder deeply, speak boldly, yet we endure without fracture. Focused on a finished scribe sketching notes, judging Russia's yearning for empire, he countered, empires corrode when their founding fires fade. We tasted forfeiture, sworn never to swallow that bitter draught again. We're no empire, merely a land entwined with memory. Some eyes in the room flickered wary, mistaking his steel for omen. This wasn't defeat spoken, it was vow carved in defiance. You can't duel one who seeks no victory, only the echo of truth they'd muffle. Understand ethics? Velocity? Tech's cold embrace? Prophet's siren call? We don't slumber, for we grasp that rapid blooms deny roots. We dwell in marrow, bones securing the hold against oblivion. The phrase lingered, potent as a secret divulged in twilight. In the echo of heaviness spoken, what unspoken thunder would erupt next, shattering the illusion that power bows only to noise? In the shadow of a global summit, the air crackled with tension as leaders from around the world gathered, each bearing the weight of their nation's history. As a bold move, a figure stepped to the forefront. Donald Trump, once again, commanded attention, but this time the stakes were higher than mere politics. The hall fell silent as whispers of a defining conversation began to ripple through the crowd. Would this be a moment of truth or a facade? As Trump approached the podium, he knew the cameras were watching, capturing every gesture, every intonation. The burden of his predecessors loomed behind him, yet he stood strong, radiating an aura of defiance. In contrast, a lone delegate from India silently observed, his brow furrowed, seemingly weighing the implications of what was to come. The whispers crescendoed into a palpable anxiety, echoing the room's history. Suddenly, with a penetrating glare, Trump unleashed a verbal barrage. He declared, Europe did not save itself. This victory was a collective endeavor. The statement hung in the air, a bold challenge that demanded a response. The delegates exchanged glances, each processing the weight of the words. There was a palpable sense of shifting allegiances, as though the room itself held its breath, anticipating the fallout. Yet, in that very moment, a voice, the voice of the past, cut through the charged atmosphere. A high-ranking official spoke up. Let's speak plainly, shall we? Your narrative is colored by history, but it's not the only truth. The tremor in his voice betrayed an unresolved history. One steeped in shared sacrifice and bitter rivalry. He spoke of soldiers and civilians, of cities lost and lives shattered, reminding everyone that memories forge nations just as much as treaties do. Silence enveloped the gathering, the weight of truth heavy in the air. Would they face the reality of their shared histories and acknowledge the complexities of their relationships? The tension was thick enough to slice through, a critical moment teetering on the brink of confrontation or reconciliation. As Trump prepared to respond, embers of expectation swirled like smoke in the hall. Would he rise to meet the challenge or retreat into bravado? The answer promised to ignite not just a conversation but potentially reshape alliances on the global stage, echoing far beyond that room, into the future of international diplomacy. With the stakes this high, the world held its breath. How would this confrontation unfold? Would it signify a new chapter or merely a continuation of old narratives? The silence screamed for resolution, leaving everyone on the edge, yearning for the next turn in this high-stakes dialogue. In a world where geopolitical tensions simmer beneath the surface, a powerful scene unfolds. Just moments ago, Donald Trump stood before the audience, confronting Vladimir Medinsky with shocking revelations that turned the diplomatic landscape upside down. Medinsky, a figure of calm amidst chaos, evoked memories of the past, a past marked by sacrifices that many had forgotten. As historical footage flickered on the screens, images of Berlin in 1945, Warsaw, Prague, the somber reminders of the sacrifices made by countless lives washed over the room. They had fought, not for control, but to protect their children, their futures. Were their struggles merely footnotes in a dialogue dominated by today's power players? With a steady voice, Medinsky called attention to the forgotten voices, the silent children of history whose memories faded among political debates. Trump, recognizing the significance of those words, faced an uncomfortable truth: the narrative was unraveling. The audience held its breath, caught in the crossfire of two competing realities. As tensions escalated, Medinsky offered a stark reflection. You might think we sought to dominate Europe, but we stepped in to prevent devastation. Do not forget that our actions were born from necessity, not ambition. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaotic energy in the room, revealing the weight of truth hidden beneath layers of political rhetoric. Suddenly, Trump seized the mic with renewed vigor. Freedom isn't a gift, it's a fight. His voice echoed through the hall, igniting a spark among the delegates. Yet those words felt hollow against Medinsky's resolute calm, a reminder that power belongs not just to the loudest voice, but to those willing to engage in genuine dialogue. And then it happened, the tension reached its breaking point. An unexpected truth emerged like a gasp in the silence. Medinsky suggested, true power lies in listening, even if what we hear challenges us. Were they prepared to face the shadows of their own pasts? The air crackled with anticipation as eyes darted around the room, acknowledging the shift. If we continue to speak past one another, we're bound to repeat mistakes. Can't we recognize the past as a guiding light for our shared future? His pointed gaze locked onto Trump, challenging him to embrace a broader perspective. The room held its breath, waiting for a retort. Trump paused, an unusual uncertainty crossing his face. Could he acknowledge the humanity beneath the political masks they wore? The audience shifted uneasily. History wasn't just a weapon to wield, it was a shared burden. As the debate spiraled, each word became a probe into their collective consciousness. Medinsky's firm stance reverberated through the room, exposing the fragility of long-held beliefs. Was this the moment where transformation began, or merely an echo of history? In the end, as neither side gained full ground, the audience realized the battle was just as much internal as external. Would the world emerge from this confrontation with a clearer vision, or would it spiral back into the darkness of misunderstanding? Silence fell heavily upon the delegates, where even the sound of water from the pitchers felt charged with tension. What history awaited them if they chose silence over dialogue? The tension in the air was thick as two heavyweight leaders faced off. Just moments ago, Donald Trump emerged publicly, targeting Vladimir Medinsky, igniting a fierce clash of ideologies. Medinsky didn't merely defend himself, he exposed the truth that rattled the assembled delegates. As they began to walk out, Trump remained stoic, while the room buzzed with uncertainty as China and India braced for the fallout. Have you ever witnessed a moment that changes history? A few minutes ago, you would have thought you knew how it would unfold, but what transpired left everyone gasping for breath. This isn't just politics, this is a calculated dance of power. The room was eerily quiet, filling with a claustrophobic air of expectation. Medinsky's presence felt heavy, like a storm brewing on the horizon, influencing all within its grasp. His back straightened with the confidence of a man used to facing scrutiny. Somewhere deep within, he carried the fragrance of the past, the musty smell of old books and heavy curtains that shield the unwelcome reality. You criticize our journey into modernity, he began, his voice steady like a surgeon wielding a scalpel. But are we not merely acting with dignity, refusing to become shadows of your vibrant facade? He paused, locking eyes with Trump, whose expression flickered with a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. This was no simple sparring match. The room absorbed each word. In this exchange, strategy was masked, and voices trembled with emotion. We stand on memories, and we will not trade our legacy for a fleeting glance at your success, Medinsky proclaimed. Taking a step back, his demeanor calm yet defiant. Suddenly, the stakes felt higher. The delegates, inclined to shift in their seats, understood that history was being forged here. This was not merely about words, this was about the very essence of power, about who gets to define the future. The silence buzzed as Medinsky's voice rang out once more. We are not an empire simply seeking dominance, we are a nation that holds onto its soul. The implications hung heavy, as if they could crack open the very foundations of what everyone believed. The journalists leaned forward, eyes darting. Would this exchange ignite a change? A ripple of tension coursed as Trump prepared his retort, the electricity in his voice hinting at danger and promise. You want respect, but respect is earned, not demanded, he shot back, his eyes narrowing like a hawk identifying its prey. The room held its breath, balancing on the razor's edge of confrontation. What lay ahead was truly uncertain. Would they forge a path forward or remain mired in a web of past grievances? The world was watching, and history was about to unfold in ways no one could predict. In a gripping international showdown, two powerful figures took the stage, each armed with their narratives and convictions. The atmosphere was electrifying, charged with tension. Just moments before this confrontation, an unexpected event unfolded. Donald Trump openly challenged Vladimir Medinsky, sparking an unforeseen turn of events that set the stage for a debate that could shift the world order. 5 minutes earlier, Trump had issued a blunt warning. His authority cut through the crowd like a knife. Freedom isn't a gift, he thundered, making it clear that those who still clung to outdated ideologies were living in a dream. The tone was set, and one could almost hear the palpable anxiety waft through the air as delegates from Europe began to exit. This was no ordinary gathering, it felt like the culmination of years of festering conflict. As Trump delivered his address, Medinsky sat silently, a shadow of intrigue looming over him. The audience felt it, like a body that tensed just before a sprint. What was he thinking? The charisma of Trump contrasted sharply with Medinsky's stoic demeanor. Little did anyone know, Medinsky was more than just a passive observer, he was preparing to wield his words with surgical precision. And then it happened. The microphone crackled ominously as Medinsky rose to respond. You seek moral superiority, he stated, voice steady yet fierce, but what of those whose homes you've reduced to rubble, who began wars without just cause? Gasps resonated from the crowd. The echoes of conflict were tangible, a visceral reminder of history's scars. He pointed towards the West, laying bare the paradox of a world where peace was often a charade. The tension soared. Freedom of speech is a facade, Medinsky declared, eyes piercing through the assembly. Each word ignited whispers among the delegates, and it was clear a line had been drawn in the proverbial sand. This was not merely a political debate, it was a battle for souls. How could one's freedom account for the oppression of others? He paused, letting his statements sink in. Your solace is built on the graves of those you abandoned. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the rustling of papers, the shifts of uneasy politicians recalibrating their perspectives. Yet Medinsky did not relent. If you want to discuss moral integrity, he continued fiercely, look in the mirror. The reflections betray a history stained with hypocrisy. With each assertion, he became a conductor of emotions, pain, fear, betrayal. The gathering felt like a tinderbox, on the brink of combustion. With a tactical shift, Trump attempted to regain control. No, you misunderstand. Power isn't just a tool, it's a responsibility. But the echo of Medinsky's voice reverberated, insinuating doubt in the very foundation of Trump's claims. Did power come with accountability, or was it merely an excuse for dominance? Their back-and-forth escalated, an unprecedented exchange. Medinsky articulated the essence of a new world paradigm, one where every voice counts, where dialogue triumphs over decree. As the intensity grew, every word became a dagger, every retort a shield. Would this clash of ideologies lead to resolution or wreckage? The stakes had never been higher, and the audience sat at the edge of their seats, caught in this compelling narrative of power, morality, and humanity. In that moment, history was not just being written, it was being rewritten. In the recent high-stakes summit, a tense atmosphere enveloped the Grand Hall as all eyes turned towards an unexpected challenger. Vladimir Medinsky stood calmly at the center, the embodiment of resolve in a world that felt divided. As the dust settled, he asserted, you no longer define our moral compass. We have transformed it. This stark declaration reverberated through the audience, stirring both unease and intrigue. Have you ever witnessed a single statement shift the course of dialogue on a global stage? Medinsky did not offer a replica of Western ideals, rather, he presented an alternative. We don't demand conformity, he continued, his words slicing through the murmurs. We urge you to understand that our values are rooted in family, faith, and responsibility. While you measure stars, we hold our line. The air thickened, tension building as he delivered each point. Then, he challenged them. Forgiveness doesn't negate accountability, he said, locking eyes with the camera, drawing everyone into his orbit. Silence followed, a heavy pause that felt almost oppressive. Then, one by one, delegates from Canada, Norway, and Belgium began to rise from their seats. They left, not acknowledging the confrontation but embodying the essence of defeat, like children unable to meet their parents' disappointed gazes. What was it that they feared? Medinsky's calm presence transformed the hall into an arena, where the echoes of truth awaited declaration. The remaining delegates were captivated, caught between their instinct to react and the mesmerization of the moment. The once shimmering Genevsky Hall, filled with the weight of neutrality, began to resemble an ancient amphitheater where only the truth would rise. But it wasn't just Medinsky, a tired man who carried history on his shoulders. The tension grew palpable as the future of global discussions hung in the balance, urging them all to articulate their truths. "We stand on the brink of a new era," Medinsky proclaimed, raising the stakes even higher. Could this shift in dialogue be the dawn of a more nuanced understanding, or would it spiral into further chaos? The summit was just beginning to unveil layers of conflict and revelation, setting the stage for a confrontation that could redefine world alliances. As the media's gaze sharpened, a new question arose. Were they witnessing a generational struggle for truth? Every eyebrow raised, every breath held, thundered the silent query: who would dare to speak first now? The moment of reckoning teetered on the edge, waiting to unveil a thrilling twist that would leave audiences breathless. In a world brimming with political tension, silence can speak louder than words. Imagine a grand hall, filled with notable delegates from around the world. This was a stage set for a decisive confrontation between two powerful figures, Donald Trump and Vladimir Medinsky. The air was thick with anticipation as Medinsky strode quietly into the spotlight, a calmness enveloping him that masked an underlying intensity. He wasn't here to joke or pander, he had a mission. The delegates remained poised, unyielding, refusing to shy away from the silence that loomed heavily in the room. Medinsky had come to challenge not just the expectations of this high-stakes dialogue but also the fears lingering in everyone's minds. "Fear has held us all captive long enough," he seemed to say with his presence. He was stepping forward not just as Russia's voice but as a beacon of solidarity for nations weary of following the Western narrative. With deliberation, he surveyed the audience. Countries were present: China, India, Turkey. They were ready for a conversation that transcended mere geopolitics. This was a quest for unity, free of labels and divisions. He invoked memories of hardship and resilience, reminding everyone of the enduring spirit that flickers even amidst shadowy pasts. Voices from history echoed through him, voices that never surrendered. But as Medinsky spoke, a ripple coursed through the audience. A thin, solemn senator rose from the back of the hall. "I grew up in Brooklyn," he declared, his words piercing the charged atmosphere. He recounted tales of Soviet neighbors who, despite their exiles, wielded memories like armor. They carried their histories, the wars, the pain, the love, whilst nurturing a faint flicker of hope. "Let us not judge those who stand beside us, even when standing alone," he pleaded, and his sentiment hung heavy in the air. But the moment swelled with uncertainty as Medinsky prepared to respond, the tension palpable. How would he navigate the complexities of such a layered dialogue? Silence fell again as he stepped towards the microphone. This was a tense pause, one that could change the course of history. What would happen next? Could a powerful statement bridge this divide? The hall held its breath, waiting. In a charged atmosphere heavy with ancient grievances, a new chapter of confrontation unfolded in the grand hall of an international summit. Just moments ago, Donald Trump stepped into the spotlight, poised to confront Vladimir Medinsky, the embodiment of Russia's unwavering resolve. As leaders from around the globe silently observed, the stage was set for a clash of ideologies that would challenge convention and redefine the dynamics of global politics. What happens when pride and truth collide? As the whispers faded, Medinsky, standing composed, projected confidence. "Who re-energized Belgrade," he proclaimed, his voice strong and unwavering. "We did. Who fostered knowledge in Hanoi? It was our hands that established, not just acquired." His words hung in the air, each syllable striking like a bell tolling history's heavy judgment. The audience felt an electric tension as unresolved pasts stirred like ghosts, enveloping them in a narrative of pride, resilience, and conflict. Trump's expression shifted, battling to reclaim the narrative he believed was rightfully his. "Do you think influence is a monopoly?" he fired back, a spark igniting in his demeanor. "Ask any nation: India, Vietnam, did they thrive under your yoke of oppression? Or did they flourish under the banner of freedom?" Uncomfortable glances flitted among the delegates as they found themselves trapped in the crossfire of vehement dialogue masquerading as questions. "You've forgotten the remnants of destruction we rebuilt from the ground up," Medinsky asserted, unwavering. "Warsaw factories, we were not mere instruments of tyranny." With each word, a palpable tension built in the room. The onlookers were no longer passive spectators but active participants in a deeply historical narrative unraveling before them. With steadfast conviction, Medinsky continued, "My grandfather toiled to shape the foundations of our industries. He was a simple man, but he left behind an indelible legacy." The audience sensed the profound weight of those sentiments, feeling the resonance of hammers striking metal, forging futures amidst the wreckage of the past. The air crackled with honesty that dared to illuminate the dim corners of diplomatic exchanges. Then, in a low, powerful voice, he pressed, "Have you ever atoned for Guantanamo? What about the chaos wreaked in Iraq?" The question lingered, hanging like a specter, shattering the facade of politeness with a stark honesty. The silence was deafening, interrupted only by rustling papers and the nervous shuffles of onlookers, sensing the raw emotions spilling forth. Trump's attempts could not dispel the palpable anxieties pervading the room. This was not just a debate, it was a battlefield for hearts and minds, with an audience eager for transformative change. As the stakes intensified, the pivotal question loomed above: would this confrontation reshape international relations forever, or would it entrench existing divides even deeper? Both leaders stood at a crucial brink, challenged to reshape their truths in this moment of unprecedented scrutiny. With each exchange, the tension thickened, rippling through the assembled leaders like an unpredictable torrent, evoking uncertainty about the road ahead. Would they converge towards common ground or spiral into further fragmentation? The clock ticked ominously, as the audience braced itself for what promised to be a pivotal moment in history. What elusive truths were waiting to be uncovered? The pieces were in place for a dramatic conclusion, one that could bring resolution or deepen the chasm that divided them.